In the vast, sun-scorched lands of ancient Egypt, where civilization blossomed along the life-giving Nile, one creature's roar echoed with the authority of the gods themselves, the lion. To the people of the two lands, this was no mere beast of the savannah. It was a living embodiment of celestial might, a symbol of royal authority and the untamed fury of the divine. Tonight, we venture past the golden dunes and into the hallowed halls of pharaohs, to explore how the lion became the sacred incarnation of Egypt's power and dominion. In the beginning, when the world was still taking shape from the primordial waters of Nun, the sun god raising light and life to all creation. As his golden barge sailed across the celestial ocean, his power manifested on earth in the form of a magnificent lion. This was the birth of the solar lion, an entity intrinsically linked to the sun's daily cycle of death and rebirth. The Egyptians observed the lion's majestic presence, its golden mane like the sun's rays, and saw in it the raw, untamed power of the cosmos. The lion's commanding roar was believed to be the voice of the divine, a sound that could shake the heavens and make the earth tremble. It represented the sun at its zenith, the peak of its power, burning with an intensity that could both nurture and destroy. The pharaoh, as the son of Ra and his regent on earth, naturally adopted this potent symbolism. He was not just a king. He was the living Horus and the heir to the solar deity's cosmic authority. By aligning himself with the lion, the pharaoh absorbed its attributes of strength, courage, and absolute dominance. Royal iconography became saturated with lion imagery. Pharaohs were depicted as powerful sphinx, the body of a lion fused with the head of the king guarding sacred sites, and embodying the perfect balance of intellect and physical might. Inscriptions and reliefs showed the king as a lion, trampling his enemies underfoot, a visceral representation of his duty to uphold Mat, the cosmic order, by vanquishing the forces of chaos. The lion became more than a symbol. It was the pharaoh's divine alter ego, the manifestation of his right to rule and his capacity to protect his people with unparalleled ferocity. This connection was so profound that even the royal throne itself was often adorned with lion figures, a constant reminder that the one who sat upon it wielded the power of the greatest predator on earth, sanctioned by the sun god himself. But the lion's divine power was not solely a force of creation and protection. It possessed a terrifying, destructive aspect that commanded fear and respect. This duality found its most potent expression in the goddess Sekhmet, the lioness of wrath. Born from the fiery eye of Ra, she was unleashed upon humanity to punish its rebellion against the gods. Her name, meaning the powerful one, barely hinted at the sheer destructive force she embodied. Legend tells of a time when mankind grew arrogant and plotted against Ra. Enraged, the sun god plucked his eye from his brow and sent it to earth in the form of Sekhmet. With the head of a lioness and the body of a woman, she descended upon the land, her breath the hot desert wind, her heart filled with a bloodlust that could not be quenched. She was the divine plague, the scorching heat of the midday sun that brings pestilence and death. Sekhmet's rampage was so catastrophic that she nearly wiped out all of humanity. In a frenzy of slaughter, she waded through a river of blood, her roar a symphony of divine retribution. The other gods, horrified by the scale of the destruction, pleaded with Ra to intervene. Realizing his punishment had gone too far, Ra devised a plan to pacify his wrathful daughter. He ordered that vast quantities of beer be dyed red with ochre, mimicking the appearance of human blood. This crimson liquid was poured across the fields, where Sekhmet was continuing her massacre. Thirsty from her exertions, the lioness goddess began to drink the red beer, mistaking it for the blood she craved. She drank until she became intoxicated, her divine fury subsided, and she fell into a deep slumber. When she awoke, her rage had been transformed. She was pacified, becoming the gentle and benevolent goddess Bastet, often depicted as a cat. This myth served as a powerful allegory for the dual nature of divine power, its capacity for both apocalyptic destruction and nurturing protection. It also underscored the untamable, wild essence of the lion, a force so immense that even the gods struggled to control it. For the Egyptians, Sekhmet was a constant, terrifying reminder that the power of the lion, whether wielded by gods or kings, was a double-edged sword, demanding reverence, respect, and a healthy dose of fear. Welcome, history enthusiasts and myth lovers. Today, we journeying back to the land of pharaohs and pyramids to uncover the story of a creature that commanded ultimate respect and fear, the mighty lion. Forget what you think you know from wildlife documentaries. In ancient Egypt, the lion wasn't just a powerful predator. It was a divine symbol, a living embodiment of royalty and the untamed spirit of the desert. Imagine the Nile Valley thousands of years ago. While the river brought life, the vast, unforgiving deserts on either side were realms of chaos and danger. And ruling this harsh landscape was the lion. The Egyptians, keen observers of their world, saw in this animal an unparalleled combination of strength, courage, and ferocity. This wasn't just an animal, it was a force of nature. It's no wonder that from the earliest dynasties, the lion became the ultimate emblem of power. A king wasn't just a ruler. He was the lion of his people, a protector with the heart and might of the desert's greatest hunter. This association with royalty is etched in stone all across Egypt. The most iconic example? The Great Sphinx of Giza, with the body of a lion and the head of a king. It's the perfect fusion of human intelligence and animalistic power. The Sphinx guards the pyramids, a timeless sentinel embodying the pharaoh's eternal strength and divine right to rule. This wasn't a one-off idea. Throughout Egyptian history, pharaohs were constantly depicted as lions or with lion attributes. You'll find reliefs of kings single-handedly wrestling lions to prove their superhuman strength, or shown as a triumphant sphinx trampling Egypt's enemies under its powerful paws. This imagery sent a clear message to both their subjects and their rivals. The pharaoh possesses the indomitable spirit of the lion. He is unconquerable. The connection didn't stop with earthly power. The Egyptians believed the lion held a key position in the cosmic order. The god Aker, for instance, was depicted as two lions sitting back to back, facing opposite directions. One lion faced the east, where the sun rose, representing yesterday and the past. The other faced west, where the sun set, representing tomorrow and the future. Together, they guarded the horizon, the very gateway between the underworld and the world of the living, ensuring the sun could safely make its perilous journey through the night and be reborn each morning. This made the lion a guardian of the eternal cycle of life, death, and rebirth, a concept central to Egyptian belief. But the lion's divine portfolio was even more impressive. Many of the most powerful and feared deities in the Egyptian pantheon had leonine forms. Take Sekhmet, the powerful one. She was a warrior goddess with the head of a lioness, a fierce protector of the pharaoh in battle, and a bringer of plagues to those who defied the gods. Her breath was said to be the hot desert wind, and her roar could shake the very foundations of the earth. Sekhmet represented the destructive, terrifying power of the sun's heat. Yet she was also a goddess of healing, showing the duality of her nature. The same power that could destroy could also purify and protect. This duality is key to understanding the Egyptian view of the lion, a creature of terrifying force, but also a symbol of divine protection and righteous fury. Then there's the goddess Bastet, who is often known as a gentle cat-headed deity of home and fertility. But in her earlier forms, she too was a fierce lioness goddess, a warrior protector of Lower Egypt. Her transformation into a more domesticated cat goddess over time reflects the changing society of Egypt, but her lioness origins were never forgotten. This highlights how deeply the lion was embedded in their spiritual consciousness, representing both the untamed, dangerous aspects of the divine and the protective, nurturing ones. Even the war god Maaz was a lion-headed deity, known as the Lord of the Slaughter, who punished those who violated sacred rules. He was a divine executioner, embodying the swift and brutal justice of the lion. Walk through the ruins of Karnak or Luxor today, and you'll find lions everywhere. Avenues of sphinx line the processional ways, their stony gazes still radiating authority. Reliefs on temple walls show pharaohs like Ramesses the Great in their war chariots, accompanied by their loyal pet lions, charging fearlessly into battle. These weren't just artistic flourishes. They were statements of power, theology, and identity. The lion was a constant presence, reminding all who saw it of the might of the king and the gods. The intricate details in these carvings, the rippling muscles, the fierce snarls, the intense eyes show the deep respect and awe the artists had for this creature. They weren't just carving a symbol. They were capturing a spirit. So the next time you see an image of a lion, think beyond the African savanna. Remember its sacred role in ancient Egypt. It was more than an animal. It was the roar of a pharaoh, the glare of a god, and the guardian of eternity. It was the ultimate symbol of power and dominion, a sacred beast whose legacy is carved into the very soul of Egypt. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into history. In our last episode, we explored the lion's deep-rooted symbolism in ancient Egyptian culture, representing royalty, divinity, and the raw power of nature. Today, we re-marching onto the battlefield to witness how this sacred beast was transformed into the ultimate symbol of war and conquest. This is the story of the lion in Egyptian warfare. When a pharaoh went to war, he didn't just go as a man or a king, he went as a living embodiment of the lion itself. This wasn't just poetic imagery. It was a fundamental aspect of royal ideology. The pharaoh was seen as the earthly incarnation of Horus, but on the battlefield, he channeled the ferocity and strength of the lion god, Mahaz. He was the valiant lion, a title proudly borne by many rulers, from Thutmose III to Ramesses the Great. This identification was displayed everywhere. Temple reliefs and monuments are filled with scenes of pharaohs in the form of a lion or a sphinx, trampling their enemies underfoot. Look at the famous Narmer Palette, one of the earliest records of a unified Egypt. On one side, you see King Narmer, strong and dominant, defeating his foes. On the other, you see two serpopards, mythical creatures with leopard bodies and long serpentine necks, being tamed, symbolizing the king's control over the forces of chaos. Later imagery would become even more direct. Pharaohs are depicted with the muscular body of a lion, single-handedly scattering entire armies. The message was unmistakable. The pharaoh possessed the superhuman strength, courage, and ferocity of the most powerful predator in their world. He was not just leading the army. He was the army's primary weapon. This powerful symbolism wasn't just for domestic consumption. It was a calculated and devastatingly effective psychological weapon. Imagine you are a soldier in an opposing army. You're standing in line, waiting for the battle to begin. You look across the field and see the Egyptian war machine approaching. At its head, you see the pharaoh's chariot, adorned with golden lion heads, his banners fluttering with images of the king as a conquering lion. You've heard the stories whispered in fairytales of a king who fights with the fury of a wild beast, who cannot be stopped. The Egyptians made sure these stories spread far and wide. Their military campaigns were meticulously documented on temple walls for all to see, especially foreign dignitaries. The artwork was graphic and intimidating. Ramesses II at the Battle of Kadesh had himself depicted as a colossal figure, his chariot drawn by lion-like steeds, single-handedly charging into the Hittite ranks and causing mass panic and retreat. In these reliefs, the enemy is always shown as small, disorganized, and terrified, fleeing in chaos from the pharaonic lion. This imagery served a dual purpose. It demoralized Egypt's enemies before a single spear was thrown, suggesting that resistance was futile. Fighting the pharaoh was like fighting a force of nature. For the Egyptian soldiers, it was a source of immense morale. They weren't just following a king. They were following a divine predator, a guarantor of victory. The lion on their standards was a promise that divine power was on their side. Some accounts even suggest that pharaohs took actual tamed lions with them into battle. Ramesses the Great was famously accompanied by his pet lion, whose name has been translated as slayer of his foes. While the lion's actual combat role is debated by historians, it might have been more of a royal bodyguard or a terrifying mascot. Its presence alone would have been an awe-inspiring and horrifying sight for the enemy. Picture it. The pharaoh in his gleaming chariot with a real, roaring lion striding alongside him. The psychological impact would have been immense. It was the ultimate statement of power. I command not only men, but also the fiercest of beasts. I am the lord of all I survey, and I have come to conquer. The lion's image was, therefore, an integral part of the Egyptian war machine. It was a symbol of the pharaoh's divine mandate to rule, a tool to strike fear into the hearts of his enemies, and a rallying point for his own troops. It transformed the king from a mere mortal commander into an unstoppable force of nature, a true lion of war. Join us next time as we delve into the lion's role in the afterlife and its enduring legacy in the land of the pharaohs. Have you ever wondered why the lion, an animal not native to the Nile Valley's heartland, became one of ancient Egypt's most powerful symbols? It wasn't just a random choice. The lion was the embodiment of raw power, untamable ferocity, and royal authority. Today, we re-diving deep into the roar of history to uncover how this magnificent beast became Egypt as ultimate symbol of war and dominion. From the earliest days of the pharaohs, the lion was more than just an animal. It was a cosmic force. Its image wasn't just for show, it was a statement, a promise of protection and a threat of annihilation. The Egyptians observed lions in the deserts bordering their fertile lands. They saw their incredible strength, their strategic hunting, and their fearless nature. To them, the king, the pharaoh, was the human equivalent of this apex predator. He was the lion of his people, a protector who was both revered and feared. This connection wasn't just poetic. It was chiseled into stone and painted onto tomb walls. Think about it. The pharaoh's primary duty was to maintain Met, the cosmic order of truth, justice, and harmony. Any threat to Egypt, whether from foreign invaders or internal chaos, was a threat to Met. And how did the pharaoh combat this chaos? He channeled the spirit of the lion. He became the divine hunter, stalking the enemies of Egypt and ensuring the safety of his kingdom. We see this in countless reliefs, where pharaohs are depicted as lions or sphinx, trampling their foes underfoot. This wasn't just propaganda. It was a deeply held belief about the king's divine role. Let's talk about the goddesses. You can't discuss lions in Egypt without mentioning the formidable leonine deities. Sekhmet is perhaps the most famous. Her name literally means the powerful one, and she was the goddess of war, destruction, and healing. She was the fierce eye of the sun god Re, sent to punish humanity for its disobedience. In the myths, her rampage was so terrifying that the other gods had to trick her into drinking beer dyed red to look like blood, just to calm her down. She was the embodiment of the sun's scorching, destructive power, a force of nature that could annihilate, but also purify. By associating with Sekhmet, the pharaoh wasn't just a king. He was a divine instrument of wrath. He wielded the power to both destroy his enemies and through that destruction, restore order and protect his people. Other goddesses like Peket, the she who scratches, and Mafdet, who fought against venomous creatures, also took on leonine forms, highlighting the lioness's role as a fierce protector against all forms of evil. This symbolism wasn't just confined to mythology, it marched onto the battlefield. Imagine the scene. Thousands of Egyptian soldiers, their bronze-tipped spears glinting in the sun. At the head of the formation, held high for all to see, are the war banners. And what image do you think dominated these standards? The lion, of course. These weren't just flags. They were sacred objects, believed to carry the very essence of the gods and the pharaoh's power into battle. A standard featuring a roaring lion wasn't just a marker for a military unit. It was a psychological weapon. For the Egyptian soldier, it was a source of courage, a reminder that the divine power of Sekhmet and the pharaoh as lion was with them. For the enemy, it was a terrifying omen, a promise of the ferocious onslaught to come. It declared, "We are the unstoppable force, the predators, and you are the prey." These emblems were everywhere. The pharaoh's war chariot, the most advanced piece of military technology of its time, was often decorated with lion motifs. Panels on the side would show the king as a lion, mauling his enemies. The weapons themselves, from ceremonial daggers to battle axes, were frequently adorned with lion heads or full figures. Every time a soldier looked at his equipment, he was reminded of the strength he was supposed to embody. Even the thrones of the pharaohs often featured lion legs or entire lions as armrests, symbolizing that the king's rule and justice were founded on unshakable strength. The palace gates themselves were often guarded by lion statues, projecting the pharaoh's power and protecting the royal residence from all harm. It was a complete system of symbolic reinforcement. Let's look at a specific example, Ramesses the Great. No pharaoh embraced the lion persona more fully than Ramesses II. During the famous Battle of Kadesh, one of the largest chariot battles in history, Ramesses found himself separated from his main army and surrounded by Hittite forces. According to his own inscriptions, which he plastered on temples all over Egypt, he didn't panic. Instead, he called upon his divine father Amun-Ra and was filled with the fury of a lion. The texts describe him charging the enemy ranks alone, like a fierce lion in a flock of goats. He describes himself roaring, his power like that of Sekhmet in her rage. Whether this account is historically accurate down to the last detail is debated by historians, but that's not the point. The point is the image he chose to project, the king as a solitary, unstoppable lion, single-handedly turning the tide of battle through sheer divine ferocity. This was the ultimate expression of the pharaoh as the lion of war. This powerful imagery continued for thousands of years. Even when foreign rulers like the Nubians, Persians, and Greeks came to power in Egypt, they adopted this symbolism. Why? Because it was a universally understood language of power. To rule Egypt, you had to become the pharaoh, and to become the pharaoh, you had to become the lion. Alexander the Great was depicted as a pharaoh, and his successors, the Ptolemies, continued to use leonine imagery to legitimize their rule. The Sphinx, a fusion of a human head and a lion's body, is perhaps the most enduring legacy of this. The Great Sphinx of Giza, guarding the pyramids, is the ultimate symbol of the pharaoh's intelligence combined with the lion's strength, a timeless guardian watching over the land of Egypt. So the next time you see a statue of a lion outside a library or a government building, remember its ancient roots. This isn't just a symbol of courage. It's a legacy stretching back thousands of years to the banks of the Nile, to a civilization that saw in the lion the perfect embodiment of divine power, royal authority, and the untamable spirit needed to forge and defend an empire. The roar of the Egyptian war lion may have fallen silent, but its echo resonates through history, a powerful reminder of a time when gods and kings fought with the heart of a lion. Thanks so much for joining me on this journey into ancient Egypt. If you found this fascinating, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into history's most powerful symbols. Let me know in the comments what ancient symbol you'd like us to explore next. See you in the next video. When you picture ancient Egypt, what comes to mind? Pyramids, pharaohs, the Sphinx? But what about the true king of beasts, the lion? Today, we read Journeying Back in Time to uncover why the lion wasn't just another animal in the desert. It was the ultimate symbol of power, royalty, and divine authority in the land of the Nile. The ancient Egyptians were masters of observation. They saw the lion, with its terrifying roar and majestic presence, as the embodiment of absolute strength. This wasn't just a wild animal. It was a living metaphor for the pharaoh's own power. The king was expected to be a lion on the battlefield, a fierce protector of his people who could crush any enemy. Think about it. The pharaoh wasn't just a ruler. He was the lion of his tribe, the guardian of Maat, the cosmic order of truth and justice. This connection wasn't just poetic. It was literally carved in stone and painted on temple walls. We see countless images of pharaohs depicted as lions or sphinx, a fusion of human intelligence and leonine might trampling their enemies. These scenes weren't just art. They were powerful propaganda. They sent a clear message to all who saw them. The pharaoh possesses the strength of the mightiest predator on earth. Resistance is futile. This imagery served as a constant reminder, both to the Egyptian people and to foreign rivals, of the king's invincibility. When a pharaoh went on a royal lion hunt, it was more than just a sport. It was a highly symbolic ritual. By conquering the most powerful creature in the natural world, the pharaoh was demonstrating his control over chaos and his right to rule. It was a public performance of his divine mandate to maintain order and vanquish all threats to Egypt. But the lion's symbolism went even deeper, right to the heart of Egyptian religious belief. Many of their most powerful deities were depicted with leonine features. Take Sekhmet, the warrior goddess with the head of a lioness. She was the fierce protector of the sun god Ra, a bringer of both destruction to enemies and healing to the faithful. Her very form screamed power and divine wrath. Worshipping Sekhmet was a way of respecting and appeasing the untamable, dangerous forces of the universe. Other gods, like Mahaz, the lion-headed god of war, and even the great god Ra in his vengeful form, took on the aspect of the lion. The Aker, a double lion deity, guarded the gateway to the underworld, controlling the passage of the sun between sunset and sunrise. These two lions, facing opposite directions, represented the past and the future, yesterday and tomorrow. To the Egyptians, the lion was literally at the junction of time and eternity, a gatekeeper of cosmic cycles. This powerful symbolism was woven into the very fabric of royalty, most notably in the pharaoh's throne. The throne wasn't just a chair. It was the seat of power, the epicenter of the kingdom. And what was it often decorated with? You guessed it, lions. Legs carved like lion paws, arms ending in lion heads. When the pharaoh sat on his throne, he was visually and symbolically supported by the strength of these sacred beasts. He wasn't just sitting asterisk on asterisk a throne. He was merging with the power it represented. He became one with the lion, his authority reinforced by its image. The throne itself became a magical object, imbuing the ruler with the qualities of the lion: courage, strength, and undisputed dominion. Every time a courtier or a foreign envoy approached the pharaoh, they were met with this overwhelming display of leonine power, a silent declaration that they were in the presence of a living god. From the battlefield to the throne room, the image of the lion was a constant thread in the tapestry of pharaonic Egypt. It wasn't just an animal. It was an idea, a principle, a divine force. It represented the pharaoh's duty to protect his land and the raw, untamable power he wielded to do so. The lion was the ultimate expression of royal dominion, a sacred beast whose roar echoed through the halls of power for thousands of years. So the next time you see a statue of a sphinx or a carving of a pharaoh, look closer. You'll see the spirit of the lion looking back at you, a timeless symbol of the power and majesty that defined one of history's greatest civilizations. The lion was, and in many ways still is, the eternal guardian of Egypt's legacy. Have you ever wondered why the Sphinx, that timeless guardian of the Giza Plateau, has the body of a lion? It's no accident. In ancient Egypt, the lion wasn't just a powerful predator. It was the ultimate symbol of royalty, divine authority, and untamable strength. Long before the first pharaohs, lions roamed the deserts bordering the Nile, their raw power and majestic presence captivating the early Egyptians. They saw in the lion not just a beast, but a reflection of the sun god Ra himself, a force of nature that commanded respect and awe. This powerful creature would become intertwined with the very concept of kingship, a living emblem of the pharaoh's might. So join me as we journey back in time to uncover the story of the lion, Egypt's sacred beast of power and dominion. One of the most fascinating aspects of the lion's symbolism is its connection to the very structure of the Egyptian state. Egypt was famously known as the two lands, Upper Egypt in the south and Lower Egypt in the north. To symbolize this unified kingdom, the Egyptians created a powerful image: the Aker, two lions sitting back to back. One lion faced east, towards the rising sun and the future, while the other faced west, towards the setting sun and the past. Together they guarded the horizon, the point where day and night met. This dual lion motif represented the pharaoh's control over the entirety of creation, from the past to the future and across both halves of his kingdom. It was a constant reminder that the king, like the Aker, maintained cosmic balance and order. When you see two lions depicted together in Egyptian art, you're not just looking at a pair of animals. You're seeing a profound political and religious statement about the unity and eternal nature of Egypt itself. This idea of duality also extended to the divine feminine. The goddess Sekhmet, a terrifying and powerful deity, was depicted with the head of a lioness. She was the fierce protector of the sun god Ra, a warrior goddess who could unleash plagues and destruction upon the enemies of Egypt. Yet she was also a goddess of healing. Her ferocity was a necessary force to destroy evil and restore balance, allowing health and order to flourish. Her other form was the gentle cat goddess Bastet. This duality, from the ferocious lioness to the nurturing healer, shows how the Egyptians viewed power. True strength wasn't just about destruction. It was about the wisdom to know when to be fierce and when to be gentle. Sekhmet embodies this complex understanding. A lioness who is both the bringer of disease and the master of medicine, a perfect symbol for the formidable, yet protective, nature of the Egyptian state and its divine rulers. The connection between the pharaoh and the lion was so deep that it went beyond mere symbolism. The pharaoh wasn't just asterisk like asterisk a lion. In many ways, he was believed to asterisk be asterisk the lion. This was most vividly expressed through the tradition of the royal lion hunt. This wasn't a simple sport. It was a highly ritualized state ceremony, a public demonstration of the king's supreme power and his ability to conquer chaos. Imagine the scene: the pharaoh, in his chariot, armed with a bow and arrow, charging into an enclosure filled with captured lions. By single-handedly defeating the most feared predator in the land, the pharaoh proved to his people and the gods that he was the rightful ruler, the ultimate champion of order over the wild forces of chaos. Temple walls from Medinet Habu to the Ramesseum are covered in dramatic reliefs of pharaohs, like Ramesses II and Ramesses III hunting lions, their muscles tensed, their arrows flying true. These scenes were ancient propaganda, broadcasting the king's invincibility across the kingdom. The most famous lion-hunting pharaoh was Amenhotep III, the father of Akhenaten. He was so proud of his hunting prowess that he issued a series of commemorative scarabs, large stone beetles inscribed with texts, to celebrate his achievements. One famous scarab declares that in the first 10 years of his reign, His Majesty had killed a staggering 102 fierce lions with his own arrows. These scarabs were distributed throughout the empire and even to foreign lands, acting as ancient press releases. They sent a clear message to allies and rivals alike. The king of Egypt is as powerful and relentless as the lions he hunts. He is a force of nature, a warrior king who personally defends his land from all threats. This act of hunting wasn't just about personal bravery. It was a sacred duty, a reaffirmation of the pharaoh's divine mandate to rule and protect Egypt. The bond was so strong that some pharaohs even kept lions as royal pets, companions that would follow them into battle. The most famous example is Ramesses the Great, who is said to have a pet lion that fought alongside him at the legendary Battle of Kadesh. Temple inscriptions describe the lion, whose name has been translated as slayer of his foes, leaping into the fray, savaging the Hittite enemies, and protecting the pharaoh. While this may be an element of royal exaggeration, the image it projects is powerful. The pharaoh and the lion are one, fighting side by side to defend Egypt. These royal menageries, which also included other exotic animals, were not just zoos. They were living collections of power, symbols of the pharaoh's dominion over the natural world. Excavations at sites like Hierakonpolis have uncovered the remains of lions, leopards, and elephants buried in royal cemeteries, suggesting they were considered part of the royal court, destined to accompany their masters into the afterlife. The lion's influence extended deep into the Egyptian vision of the afterlife. As the pharaoh was identified with the lion in life, so too was he in death. Funerary objects were often adorned with lion imagery. The legs of ceremonial beds and chairs were carved to look like lion paws, symbolizing the protective power that would support the deceased on their journey through the underworld. The coffin itself could be placed on a lion-shaped bier, ensuring the king was perpetually guarded by this powerful beast. This imagery reinforced the idea that the pharaoh's royal power did not end with death. Like the sun, which sets in the west and is reborn in the east, the pharaoh would be rejuvenated and rise again, his strength and authority intact, protected by the eternal spirit of the lion. The lion was a guardian not just of horizons, but of eternity itself. Even the architecture of the temples and palaces was infused with lion symbolism. Lion statues, often in the form of sphinx, guarded the entrances to sacred precincts. They acted as liminal guardians, marking the transition from the profane, chaotic world outside to the sacred, ordered space within. By passing between these lion figures, a visitor was symbolically purified, leaving the forces of disorder behind. Rows of sphinx lining the processional ways, like the famous avenue connecting the temples of Karnak and Luxor, created a divine pathway, a channel for sacred energy, protected at every step by the royal power of the lion. These weren't just decorations. They were functional parts of the spiritual technology of ancient Egypt, ensuring that the sacred spaces remained pure and protected. From the twin lions of the horizon to the warrior goddess Sekhmet, from the royal hunt to the loyal battle companion, the lion was woven into the very fabric of ancient Egyptian civilization. It was more than just an animal. It was the embodiment of the pharaoh's divine right to rule, a symbol of cosmic order and a fierce protector of Egypt against all enemies, both seen and unseen. The next time you see the Great Sphinx, remember the thousands of years of history and belief captured in its form. You're not just looking at a monument of stone. You're looking at the enduring soul of a kingdom, the immortal lion of war, the sacred beast of power and dominion. Have you ever looked at a lion and felt a sense of awe, a shiver of respect for its raw power? This magnificent creature isn't just the king of the savannah. For the ancient Egyptians, it was a profound spiritual symbol, a sacred beast embodying power, royalty, and the very cycle of life and death. Today, we're journeying back in time down the Nile to uncover the secrets of the lion in ancient Egypt, exploring its role as a divine guardian and a master of transformation. The Egyptian landscape thousands of years ago was a place of stark contrasts. The fertile, life-giving Nile Valley and the vast, unforgiving desert that stretched out on either side. Lions roamed these desert fringes, their silhouettes stark against the rising and setting sun. For the Egyptians, the horizon was a magical place, a gateway between the world of the living and the realm of the gods. The Duat, and who guarded this mystical threshold? The lion. Think about the Great Sphinx of Giza, one of the most iconic monuments in the world. It has the body of a lion and the head of a pharaoh. This isn't just a random combination. It represents the king's immense power and his divine connection, merging human intelligence with the lion's formidable strength. But the Sphinx's gaze is fixed on the eastern horizon, the point of sunrise. This was no accident. The Egyptians observed that lions were most active at dawn and dusk, the liminal times of day. This led them to associate the lion with the horizon, which they called the Aker. The Aker was often depicted as two lions sitting back to back, one facing east towards the sunrise, representing yesterday and the future, and the other facing west towards the sunset, representing today and the past. Between them, the sun disk would either rise or set. These two lions, named Seth and Dua, literally meant yesterday and today. They controlled the entry and exit from the underworld, ensuring the sun could be reborn each morning after its perilous nightly journey. The lion was, therefore, the ultimate gatekeeper of time and eternity. This role as a guardian naturally led to the lion being a symbol of protection. Its image was everywhere. Lion-headed statues and amulets weren't just decorative. They were powerful tools of magic. People wore them to ward off danger and evil spirits. Palaces and temples were adorned with lion imagery to protect the sacred spaces within. Even everyday objects, like beds and chairs, were often carved with lion legs, symbolically protecting the owner while they slept or sat. The ferocious roar of the lion was thought to have the power to scare away any malevolent forces. But the lion symbolism went even deeper into the heart of the divine feminine. The most fearsome and powerful goddesses in the Egyptian pantheon were often depicted with the head of a lioness. Sekhmet, the powerful one, was the goddess of war, destruction, and healing. She was the fiery eye of the sun god Ra, sent to punish humanity for its disobedience. Her rage was like a consuming fire, yet she was also the patron of doctors and healers. Her power to destroy was matched only by her power to mend. This duality is key. Sekhmet represents the destructive force of nature, like the scorching sun of the desert, but also the potential for renewal and healing that follows. Other goddesses, like Bastet, initially a fierce lioness warrior, later evolved into the more familiar cat goddess of home and fertility. But her lioness origins were never forgotten, reminding her followers of the untamed power that lay beneath her gentle exterior. This shows how the Egyptians understood a crucial concept, that creation and destruction, gentleness and ferocity, are two sides of the same coin. The lioness goddesses embodied this balance perfectly. Now, let's talk about transformation, because this is where the lion's role becomes truly profound. The lion wasn't just a guardian of the physical world. It was the guardian of spiritual transformation. For the ancient Egyptians, life was a journey, and death was not an end but a transition to a new state of being. To be successfully reborn in the afterlife, the soul of the deceased had to undergo a series of trials and judgments. The Book of the Dead, a collection of spells and instructions to guide the deceased, is filled with references to leonine gods. One of the most important was Rudi, another double lion deity who, like Aker, guarded the gates of the underworld. The deceased would have to recite specific spells to appease Rudi and gain passage. By successfully passing this leonine gatekeeper, the soul proved its worth and was allowed to continue its journey towards the Field of Reeds, the Egyptian paradise. The lion, therefore, symbolized the very process of overcoming challenges. It represented the courage needed to face the unknown, to pass through the gates of change in one's life. Think about it in our own lives. We all face moments of transition, a new job, a new relationship, a personal loss. These moments can be scary, like standing before a gate guarded by a powerful lion. The Egyptian symbolism teaches us that we need to summon our inner courage, our lion heart, to pass through these gateways and emerge transformed on the other side. The pharaoh himself was deeply connected to this transformative power. He was often depicted as a lion or a sphinx, trampling his enemies. This wasn't just propaganda about military might. It was a symbolic representation of his role as the maintainer of Mat, the cosmic order of truth, justice, and balance. By defeating the forces of chaos, represented by foreign enemies, the pharaoh was ensuring the stability of the kingdom and allowing society to thrive and transform positively. His power, like the lion's, was both destructive to his enemies and protective of his people. So, when we see a lion in ancient Egyptian art, we're not just looking at an animal. We are looking at a complex tapestry of meaning. We see the guardian of the sun's daily rebirth, the protector of the living and the dead, the fierce embodiment of divine feminine power, and the ultimate symbol of a successful transformation. The lion represented the awesome and untamed power of nature, a force that could be both terrifying and life-giving. The Egyptians didn't fear this power, they revered it. They sought to understand it and integrate it into their spiritual lives. By invoking the spirit of the lion, they were calling upon the strength to protect their homes, the courage to face death, and the power to be reborn. Whether it was the sun in the morning sky or the soul in the afterlife, the lion's roar echoed across the ancient desert, not just as a sound of a predator, but as a call to awaken, to face our challenges, and to embrace the transformative power within ourselves. It is a timeless message of strength, courage, and rebirth that still resonates with us today. Have you ever stood before a statue of a lion and felt a sense of awe, a whisper of ancient power? For the ancient Egyptians, this wasn't just a feeling, it was a fundamental truth. The lion wasn't merely an animal. It was a living embodiment of the sun's fire, a symbol of untamable strength and divine authority. Journey with me back in time to the banks of the Nile, where the roar of the lion was the very voice of the gods. In the blistering heat of the desert, the lion reigned supreme. It was the ultimate predator, a creature of breathtaking power and regal confidence. The Egyptians, keen observers of the natural world, saw this and immediately drew parallels to their own ideals of kingship. The pharaoh wasn't just a ruler. He was the lion of war, a fierce protector of his people, a warrior who led his armies with unmatched courage. When you see ancient carvings of a pharaoh as a sphinx, the body of a lion and the head of a man, you witnessing this powerful fusion of human intelligence and leonine might. This wasn't just art. It was a statement of divine right and absolute power. The pharaoh was the lion, and the lion was the pharaoh. This connection to royalty was deeply woven into their mythology. Think about the sun god Ra. As he journeyed across the sky, he was the source of all life. But as the sun set, transforming into a fiery orange and red spectacle, he took on a more fearsome aspect. This was the domain of Sekhmet, the lioness-headed goddess. Her name meant the powerful one, and she was a force to be reckoned with. Sekhmet was the goddess of war, of divine retribution, and of healing. She could unleash plagues upon the enemies of Egypt with her fiery breath, yet she could also cure the sick. She was the perfect representation of the lion's dual nature, a terrifying destroyer and a fierce protector. Worshipping her wasn't just about fear. It was about respecting the immense power that could both take life and preserve it. Her priests were some of the most skilled physicians in the ancient world, understanding that the power to harm and the power to heal were two sides of the same coin. The lion's roar wasn't just a sound. It was believed to be a divine utterance, a command that shook the very foundations of the earth. It symbolized the pharaoh's decree, the unchallengeable word of the king. To hear the lion's roar was to hear the voice of authority itself. This concept, the roar within, speaks to the inner strength and courage the Egyptians sought to cultivate. They believed that by emulating the lion, they could tap into their own reserves of power. Amulets in the shape of lions were worn by soldiers heading into battle, not as mere good luck charms but as conduits for the lion's spirit. They were believed to bestow the wearer with the animal's ferocity, its unwavering bravery, and its refusal to back down from a fight. This wasn't just a masculine ideal. The lioness, the primary hunter of the pride, was equally revered. She represented fierce motherhood protection and strategic prowess. Goddesses like Bastet, often depicted as a cat but with her origins as a protective lioness deity, and Sekhmet herself, show how the female aspect of this power was celebrated. They were the guardians of the home, the protectors of women and children, embodying the idea that true strength lies in defending what you love. The Egyptians understood that courage wasn't just about aggression. It was about the will to protect and preserve. Even in death, the lion stood as a guardian. Two lions, often depicted back-to-back, formed the Akar, the symbol for the horizon. One lion faced west, where the sun set, representing yesterday. The other faced east, where the sun rose, representing tomorrow. Together, they guarded the passage of time, the gateway between the past and the future, the worlds of the living and the dead. Statues of lions were placed at the entrances to temples and tombs, not just as decoration, but as powerful guardians warding off evil spirits and protecting the sacred space within. They ensured the eternal cycle of rebirth, just as the sun was reborn each morning. The next time you see the image of an Egyptian lion, look closer. See beyond the magnificent creature? See the pharaoh leading his chariot into battle, his heart filled with the lion's fire. Hear the roar of Sekhmet, the powerful goddess who holds the fate of nations in her hands. Feel the quiet strength of the Aker, guarding the threshold of eternity. The Lion of Egypt is more than a symbol. It's a timeless lesson in power, courage, and the untamable spirit that resides within us all. It reminds us that true dominion comes not just from physical strength, but from the fire of courage that burns within our own hearts. Have you ever wondered why the lion, a creature not native to the lush Nile Valley, became one of the most powerful symbols in ancient Egypt? For thousands of years, this magnificent beast represented everything the Egyptians revered: raw power, fierce protection, and unquestionable royalty. Today we journey back in time to uncover the story of the lion, Egypt's sacred beast of war and dominion. How did this apex predator roar its way into the heart of a civilization, shaping its gods, its pharaohs, and its very identity? Stick with us as we unravel the legacy of the lion. Transition to scenes of desert landscapes, ancient hunting depictions, and early Egyptian artifacts. In the pre-dynastic period, long before the first pharaohs, lions roamed the deserts bordering the Nile. They were a real and present danger, a force of nature that commanded respect and fear. Early Egyptians, witnessing their incredible strength and hunting prowess, didn't just see a threat. They saw a divine model for power. This wasn't just any animal. It was the ultimate symbol of control over the chaotic wilderness. This reverence laid the foundation for the lion's ascent into the divine. The earliest lion deities, like Mehit, were protectors, guardians who could ward off evil spirits with their terrifying roar. This concept of the lion as a protective force would become a cornerstone of Egyptian belief, a divine shield for both the living and the dead. Show images of Sekhmet, Tefnut, and Mehaz. The lion's power was so immense that it was integrated into the very fabric of the Egyptian pantheon. Meet Sekhmet, the lion-headed goddess of war and healing. Her name literally means the powerful one. Legends say she was created from the fire in the sun god Ra's eye, sent to punish humanity for its disobedience. Her fury was so great, it nearly wiped out all of mankind. Sekhmet embodied the terrifying, destructive aspect of the sun's heat, a warrior goddess whose breath was the desert wind. Yet she was also a master of healing, a physician to the gods. This duality is key. The same power that could destroy could also protect and mend. It shows how the Egyptians understood power not as simple aggression, but as a complex force that had to be respected and carefully managed. Then there's Tefnut, the goddess of moisture and order, and Mayaz, the lion god of war and weather, whose very presence was said to bring victory. These weren't just gods with animal heads. They were the embodiment of the lion's core attributes, integrated into the cosmic balance of the universe. Transition to imagery of pharaohs, especially Ramesses II, in chariots and with pet lions. If the gods were the celestial embodiment of lion-like power, the pharaohs were its earthly manifestation. To rule Egypt was to be a lion among men. Pharaohs weren't just administrators. They were warrior kings, the chief protectors of their kingdom. From the earliest dynasties, they adopted lion imagery to project their authority. They wore lion tails on their belts, sat on thrones adorned with lion carvings, and even took on names that invoked the lion's strength. Look at the Great Sphinx of Giza, the body of a lion and the head of a king. It's the ultimate fusion of royal intelligence and animalistic power, a timeless guardian of the pyramids. This wasn't just propaganda, it was a deeply held belief. The pharaoh was the nation's shepherd, but also its fiercest defender. In battle, he was expected to lead from the front, to be a lion on the battlefield. Inscriptions describe pharaohs like Thutmose III and Ramesses, the great, charging into enemy ranks, their fury as devastating as a lion's pounce. Ramesses II even famously kept a pet lion that accompanied him into battle, a living symbol of his own divine ferocity. This connection solidified the idea that the pharaoh wasn't just like a lion. In a spiritual sense, he was the lion. Showcase amulets, tomb paintings, and funerary texts featuring lions. The lion's protective power extended beyond the battlefield, and into the most personal aspects of Egyptian life, especially in the journey to the afterlife. The Egyptians believed the underworld was a perilous place, filled with demons and challenges. To navigate it safely, one needed powerful guardians. And who better than the lion? Two lions or sphinx were often depicted sitting back to back, representing the gods Aker. They guarded the eastern and western horizons, the points where the sun rose and set. This symbolized their control over yesterday and tomorrow, over the past and the future. By guarding the entrance and exit of the underworld, they ensured the safe passage of the deceased's soul. Small lion-shaped amulets were worn for protection in daily life and placed on mummies to guard them in death. Lion-headed furniture, like beds and chairs, were believed to magically protect the user, even while they slept. Every night, the sleeper was symbolically reborn, just as the sun god Re was reborn every morning after his nightly journey through the underworld, protected by his lion guardians. The lion was a constant, vigilant presence, a symbol of eternal security. Shift focus to the broader Mediterranean and Near East. Show Assyrian, Babylonian, and Greek lion art. The legacy of the Egyptian lion of war didn't end at the borders of the Nile. As Egypt's influence spread, so did its powerful symbols. Neighboring cultures, from the Nubians in the south to the civilizations of the Near East, saw the power in Egypt's lion iconography and adopted it for themselves. In Assyria and Babylon, kings were also depicted as mighty lion hunters, a clear parallel to the pharaoh's role as a master of nature. The lion became a universal symbol of royalty and military might across the ancient world. Even the Greeks, with their own rich mythology, incorporated the lion, most famously in the tale of Heracles and the Nemean lion. The concept of a hero proving his worth by conquering. This symbol of ultimate strength echoes the pharaonic hunts of earlier centuries. Show the Lion of St. Mark in Venice, a British coat of arms and modern corporate logos with lions. This ancient symbolism continued to roar through the centuries. When the Romans conquered Egypt, they absorbed its imagery, and the lion continued to be a symbol of imperial power. Later, it was adopted by European royalty. The Lionheart King, Richard I of England, built his entire reputation on this leonine image of bravery and strength. The lion appeared on coats of arms, national flags, and royal seals across Europe, a direct descendant of the symbolism first mastered by the pharaohs. Think of the Lion of Venice, a symbol of the city's patron saint and its formidable maritime power. This tradition continues even today. We see lions in the logos of car companies, financial institutions, and movie studios, all wanting to convey strength, leadership, and majesty. From a wild beast in the Egyptian desert to a global icon of power, the lion's journey is a testament to its enduring symbolic force. Return to majestic shots of Egypt, the Sphinx, and lion statues. So the next time you see a statue of a lion guarding a library or a palace, remember its ancient roots. Remember the pharaohs who channeled its fury, the gods who wore its face, and the civilization that saw in its golden eyes the very reflection of power and dominion. The lion of ancient Egypt was more than just an animal. It was an idea, a divine blueprint for strength and authority that has never truly faded. Its roar still echoes through history, a timeless reminder of the power that once built an empire on the sands of the Nile. Have you ever stood before an image of a pharaoh and felt a shiver of awe? What if I told you that the true symbol of their absolute power wasn't the golden mask or the towering pyramid, but a living, breathing beast of the desert? This is the story of the lion, the sacred animal of ancient Egypt, a symbol of power so potent it was believed to be born from the sun itself. The ancient Egyptians saw the lion not just as a predator, but as a divine manifestation of raw, untamable force. Its roar wasn't merely a sound. It was the voice of the gods, a decree of dominion over the land. When a pharaoh went to war, he didn't go alone. He channeled the spirit of the lion. He was the Lion of War, a title that struck fear into the hearts of his enemies. Think of Ramesses the Great at the Battle of Kadesh. Legends say he was accompanied by his own pet lion who fought beside him, a terrifying embodiment of the king's divine fury. This wasn't just a pet. It was a living weapon, a statement that the pharaoh possessed the strength of the fiercest creature known. The lion was the ultimate symbol of a king's duty, to protect his people with ferocious courage and to conquer all who dared to challenge his authority. This connection wasn't just metaphorical. Pharaohs like Amenhotep III boasted of hunting over 100 lions, not out of sport, but as a ritual to prove their strength and absorb the creature's power. By defeating the king of beasts, the pharaoh reaffirmed his own right to rule as the king of men. These hunts were public spectacles, carefully recorded on temple walls, sending a clear message to all: your ruler has the strength of a god. The lion's image was everywhere, a constant reminder of royal might. We see them carved into thrones, protecting the king even in his seat of power. Statues of Sphinx, part human, part lion, guard the sacred precincts of temples and tombs, merging the intelligence of humanity with the invincible strength of the lion. The Great Sphinx of Giza is the most famous example, a silent, eternal guardian of the pharaoh's legacy. Its lion body a bulwark against chaos and time itself. The lion's power extended beyond the battlefield and into the realm of the divine. Sekhmet, the lion-headed goddess, was one of the most feared and respected deities in the Egyptian pantheon. She was the goddess of war, destruction, and healing, a paradox that perfectly captures the dual nature of the lion. She could unleash plagues upon the enemies of the sun god Ra, her breath a scorching desert wind. Yet she was also the Lady of Life, a powerful healer whose priests were some of the most skilled physicians of their time. To appease Sekhmet was to walk a razor's edge. You prayed for her protection, hoping her fierce loyalty would be on your side, while fearing the devastating consequences of her wrath. Worshipping her was an acknowledgement that true power is both creative and destructive, and must be respected. Her temples were filled with hundreds of statues, each one a vessel for her potent energy, a testament to her importance in the daily lives of Egyptians, from the pharaoh down to the commoner. But the lion's symbolism reached its peak in its connection to the sun, the ultimate source of life and power in ancient Egypt. The lion was seen as a solar animal. Its golden mane was likened to the sun's rays, and its terrifying roar to the thunder that accompanied the sun god's journey. The god Aker was depicted as two lions sitting back to back, one facing the sunrise in the east, the other the sunset in the west. Together, they guarded the horizon, ensuring the sun could safely pass through the underworld each night and be reborn each morning. This represented the eternal cycle of life, death, and rebirth, a core belief in Egyptian cosmology. By associating themselves with the lion, pharaohs weren't just claiming earthly power. They were aligning themselves with the cosmic order, with the very engine of the universe. They became the earthly guarantors of this eternal cycle, their reign a reflection of the sun's unending journey across the sky. Even in death, the lion remained the ultimate protector. Funerary beds were often carved in the shape of lions, tasked with guarding the deceased on their perilous journey through the underworld. These lion-shaped guardians were meant to ward off evil spirits and ensure the soul's safe passage to the afterlife. The lion's image on a tomb was a promise of resurrection, a symbol that just as the sun is reborn each day, so too would the soul of the deceased awaken to a new life. This wasn't just decoration. It was active magic, an invocation of the lion's eternal strength to conquer even death itself. For the pharaoh, this connection was paramount. His tomb was not an end, but a gateway, and the lion was the key that unlocked it, ensuring his rebirth as a god among the stars. The roar of the lion was not silenced by death. It echoed into eternity. From the war-torn borders of the empire to the silent chambers of the tomb, the lion was the thread that connected the pharaoh to his divine destiny. It was the embodiment of strength, the face of divine justice, and the guardian of eternity. The lion was more than an animal. It was an idea, a principle of power so fundamental that the entire civilization was built upon its foundation. When we look at the ruins of ancient Egypt today, we see the remnants of a culture that understood the raw, primal nature of power. They didn't just admire the lion. They sought to become it. They wove its spirit into their art, their religion, and their very identity. The pharaohs may be long gone, and the temples may have fallen to sand, but the lion's roar still echoes through the corridors of history, a timeless reminder of a kingdom that dared to harness the power of a god. So the next time you see a lion, whether in a zoo or in a documentary, remember its ancient legacy. Look past the predator and see the symbol, the protector, the king, the solar deity. Remember the pharaohs who wore its mantle, the goddesses who bore its face, and the civilization that saw in its golden eyes a reflection of the divine. The eternal roar of the Egyptian lion is a story of power, dominion, and the unending quest for immortality. If this story awakened your inner roar and you re-curious to learn more about the potent symbols that shaped our world, Then subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell. Together, we'll continue to explore the forgotten emblems of power, faith, and the divine fire that drives humanity. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next chapter of our journey.